I, 32M, was married to my wife, 31F, for almost 6 years, together for 9. On paper, we looked solid. Nice apartment, decent jobs, no kids yet but planning soon, all that clean Instagram version of life. But looking back now, there were cracks everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. She was always sharp with her words. Not in a honest and direct way, more like cutting. If I brought up something small, like her coming home late without texting, she'd flip it into me being controlling or insecure. Every single time. And the weird part? She was really good at it. Like she could twist a conversation so cleanly that I'd end up apologizing even when I was the one originally hurt. And she lied. A lot. At first it was small stuff. Working late. Phone died. Forgot to reply. Normal excuses, right? I believed them because I wanted to trust my wife. That's what you do in a marriage, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. But over the last year, things started feeling off in a way I couldn't explain. She started caring way too much about her appearance, but not for me. New outfits, new perfume, gym obsession that had nothing to do with us spending time together. She'd sit next to me on the couch scrolling her phone and physically turn the screen away when I walked by. If I asked casually, "What's funny?" she'd snap, "Nothing, why are you always watching me?" That line became her favorite weapon. Why are you always watching me? And honestly, I stopped asking. Because every time I did, I ended up as the problem. The last real, normal memory I have before everything collapsed was a Tuesday night. She told me she had a late meeting. Kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her coat, and left. I remember standing in the kitchen after she closed the door, just staring at the sink for no reason. Something in me felt uneasy, but I ignored it like I always did. If I only knew that was the night everything would start unraveling. That late meeting excuse wasn't new. I'd heard it before so many times that it barely registered anymore. But this time, something stuck in my head like a splinter. She left at 7:40 p.m. Around 9:15, I noticed she hadn't texted once. Not even the usual, "still here weary face" message she sometimes sent when she wanted to look busy but still keep me in the loop. I tried to distract myself. TV on. Scrolled my phone. Made tea I didn't even drink. By 10:30, I checked her location. Yeah, we shared it. Her idea, not mine. She always said it was cute and trusting. Except that night, her location wasn't at her office. It was somewhere downtown I didn't recognize. Not a workplace. Not a coworker's place. Just a random apartment block. I remember laughing a little at first. Like, okay, maybe the GPS glitched. That happens, right? But then I refreshed it. Same spot. I told myself not to spiral. I actually said it out loud in the kitchen like an idiot, "Don't be that guy." But my body didn't listen. I grabbed my jacket. I didn't even fully decide to go there, I just suddenly found myself in the car, engine running, hands slightly shaking like they didn't belong to me. The drive felt too fast and too slow at the same time. Every red light was torture. Every green light felt like I was getting closer to something I wasn't ready to see. When I arrived, I parked across the street. And I just sat there. Looking at the building. Normal lights. Normal people. Normal life happening inside a place that suddenly felt like it might destroy mine. Then I saw her location update again. Same building. Different floor. And that's when I noticed something else. Her car wasn't there. But another car was parked right outside the entrance. And I recognized it. Because she had mentioned it before. Just a coworker, she had said once, way too casually. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. And I still didn't move. Not yet. Because some part of me was still hoping I was wrong. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, just watching that entrance like it was going to suddenly make sense of itself. Nothing happened at first. People came in, people left. Normal city stuff. And I kept thinking, I'm being paranoid. This is insane. Go home. But then I saw her. She walked out of the building like it was the most normal thing in the world. Same coat. Same hair. That same quick, confident walk she always had when she thought she was in control of a situation. And behind her, him. The coworker. Tall guy. Late 30s maybe. The kind of guy who looks annoyingly calm about everything. He said something to her and she laughed. Not the polite kind of laugh she uses with me's friends. This was different. Relaxed. Familiar. Like they were already mid-conversation before I ever existed in the room. I swear my brain lagged for a second. Like I was watching a video that hadn't fully loaded yet. Then she did something that made my stomach drop. She leaned in. Quick kiss. Not dramatic. Not messy. Just, natural. Like it had been practiced. I don't even remember opening the car door. I just remember standing there on the street, cold air hitting my face, watching them separate like nothing happened. And then she saw me. That moment changed everything. Her face didn't go pale. She didn't freeze like in movies. No. She just rolled her eyes. Like I was the inconvenience. Like I was the problem showing up at the wrong time. The guy looked between us, confused for half a second, then slowly stepped back like he didn't want to get involved. And my wife, my actual wife, just said, "What are you doing here?" Like I was the one who crossed a line. I asked her straight up, right there on the street, how long? She didn't even hesitate. "Don't do this here," she said, like I was the one causing a scene. The guy shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable now, like he suddenly realized he wasn't in some casual affair anymore, he was standing in the middle of a collapsing marriage. I looked at him. "How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" That got a reaction. She immediately cut in, sharp and loud, "Stop. You don't get to talk to him like that." That's when something in me just cracked. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a quiet internal snap, like a rope finally giving up after too much tension. I turned back to her. "So it's true." She exhaled like she was tired of me already. "It's not that simple," she said. I almost laughed at that. Of course. Nothing is ever that simple when you get caught. Then she said something that still messes with my head even now. "You've been impossible to live with lately." I just stared at her. Because that wasn't even an answer. It was a pivot. A justification. A setup. Like cheating was just a response to me, not a choice she made. The guy finally spoke up. Calm voice, too calm. "Hey man, I think there's been a misunderstanding." I actually laughed at that. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Like I was watching two people perform a script that only they had read. "A misunderstanding?" I said. "You just kissed my wife." That's when she snapped. "Stop saying it like that," she said sharply, stepping forward. "You're embarrassing yourself." That word, embarrassing, felt intentional. Like she was trying to shift the shame onto me in real time, in front of him. And it worked, in a twisted way. I felt people on the street slowing down, noticing. The city noise suddenly felt louder, like everything was watching. She looked at me like I was something she needed to get rid of quickly. Then she said something that didn't make sense at first. "You're acting unstable again." Again. Like this was a pattern she had already decided I was part of. Like she had rehearsed that label long before this moment. And in that instant, I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't going to be a confession. It was going to be a rewrite of reality. I asked her, "So how long?" She didn't even blink. "Don't do this here," she said, like I was the one causing a scene. Then she added, almost casually, "Why are you following me around?" That hit me harder than anything I saw with my own eyes. Because in her mind, I wasn't someone who just caught his wife kissing another man. I was the problem for being there. The guy finally spoke up. "Yeah man, I think there's been a misunderstanding." I almost laughed at that. Not because it was funny, it was absurd. Like I was watching two people perform a script that only they had read. "A misunderstanding?" I said. "You just kissed my wife." That's when she snapped. "Stop saying it like that," she said sharply. "You're embarrassing yourself." That word, embarrassing, felt intentional. Like she was trying to shift the shame onto me in real time, in front of him. And it worked, in a twisted way. I felt people on the street slowing down, noticing. The city noise suddenly felt louder, like everything was watching. She looked at me like I was something she needed to get rid of quickly. Then she said something that didn't make sense at first. "You're acting unstable again." Again. Like this was a pattern she had already decided I was part of. Like she had rehearsed that label long before this moment. And in that instant, I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't going to be a confession. It was going to be a rewrite of reality. I said, "So it's true." She exhaled like she was tired of me already. "It's not that simple," she said. I almost laughed. Of course. Nothing is ever that simple when you get caught. The guy stepped back further, clearly wanting out of the situation, but she still didn't even look at him. That's when it hit me, he wasn't the center of this. Not really. He was just part of something already ongoing long before that kiss. I felt my voice shake when I asked, "How long has this been going on?" She finally paused. Not guilt. Not hesitation. More like calculation. "Does it matter?" she said. And that answer told me everything. Because if it had been new, she would have denied it. If it had been accidental, she would have explained it. But she didn't do either. She just tried to erase the importance of time altogether. I remember looking at her face at that moment and feeling something weirdly empty settle in my chest. Not anger. Not sadness yet. Just recognition. Like I was finally seeing a version of her I had ignored for years. She sighed again and said, "I didn't plan for you to find out like this." That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because of how absurdly careful she thought she had been. Like the problem wasn't the betrayal. It was the timing of my awareness. And then she said something that stuck harder than anything else so far. "I thought you'd just move on eventually." That's when the anger finally caught up to the shock. I remember stepping closer without even thinking about it. "Move on?" I said. "From my wife cheating on me?" She didn't even flinch. "You're acting like I killed someone," she said coldly. "People end relationships all the time." That word, relationships, not marriage, not us, felt deliberate. Like she was already shrinking what we were down into something disposable. The guy finally spoke again, quieter this time. "I should go." And for the first time, she actually looked at him. Not love. Not concern. More like frustration that he was interrupting her focus. "Yeah," she said. "Text me later." Text me later. Right in front of me. Like I was just background noise to whatever they had going on. That's when something inside me shifted again, but in a different direction. The anger didn't explode, it got controlled. Cold. I asked her, "Are you serious right now?" She shrugged. "I'm not doing this here." You already did it here, I said. That finally got a reaction. Not guilt, annoyance. You're making this dramatic, she said again, like it was her favorite defense. I remember looking around and realizing people were definitely watching now. A couple across the street slowed down. Someone on a bike even turned their head. And she noticed it too. She lowered her voice slightly, but not in a caring way. More like damage control. Can we talk at home? She said. That almost broke me in a different way. Because it wasn't, let's fix this. It was, let's manage how this looks. I told her, no. Just that. One word. And for the first time, she looked slightly thrown off. Not because she cared about me. But because I wasn't following the script she expected anymore. She stared at me and said, "You're going to regret this scene." And I remember thinking. No. I already regret staying silent for too long. That "you're going to regret this scene" line kept echoing in my head longer than anything else. Not what she did. Not the kiss. Not even the lies. That sentence. Like I was the one creating chaos by reacting to it. I just stood there for a moment, watching her like I didn't recognize her anymore. Maybe I didn't. Then I asked something I probably should have asked years earlier. Do you even love me? She didn't hesitate. I don't know anymore, she said. Not, no. Not, I don't think so. Just, uncertainty. As if I was a long-term habit she'd outgrown and hadn't bothered to fully quit. That hurt in a way I didn't expect. Because anger has energy. Shock has noise. But that? That just empties you out. The guy finally started walking away. Fast now. Like he realized staying longer would drag him into something messier than he signed up for. She didn't stop him. Didn't call him back. Didn't even watch him leave for long. Her attention stayed on me like I was the only problem left to solve. I said, "So this is it? You cheat, you lie, and now you just decide we're done?" She sighed like I was being difficult again. "I didn't decide anything today," she said. "This has been going on for a while in my head." That sentence messed me up more than I expected. Because it meant I wasn't part of a shared reality anymore. I was just catching up to a decision she'd already emotionally finalized. I asked her, was I ever going to know? She paused. And that pause told me yes. Eventually. When it suited her. When she was ready. Or when I became inconvenient enough to replace cleanly. Then she said something that felt like the final twist of that moment. "You always needed everything explained to you. I thought you'd accept it if I eased into it." That's when I realized she hadn't just betrayed me. She had been managing me. I actually laughed at that. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. Managing me? I said. "You're talking like I'm a project you got bored of." She didn't like that wording. Her jaw tightened slightly. "You're twisting my words." "No," I said, "I'm finally hearing them clearly." That made her go quiet for a second, and it was the first time I saw something close to discomfort on her face. But it didn't last. She quickly recovered, like she always did. "You're not perfect either," she said again, like a broken record she could fall back on whenever she needed. And I snapped. "What did I do?" I asked. "Tell me. Right now. What did I do that makes you think cheating is reasonable?" She hesitated. That hesitation mattered. Because if there was a real list, she would have thrown it at me instantly like she always did in arguments. Instead she said, "It's not about one thing." Classic deflection. Everything and nothing at the same time. I looked at her and felt something shift again, this time into something quieter but more dangerous. Acceptance wasn't there yet, but denial was starting to die. I asked, How long has it been going on with him? She finally answered, more tired now. A few months. That should have been the worst part. But then she added. Before that, there was someone else. That hit like a second punch I didn't see coming. I actually took a step back. Someone else? I repeated. She nodded like it was just information. Not confession. Nothing serious, she said quickly. It didn't go anywhere. That phrase, didn't go anywhere, made my stomach turn. Like betrayal only counted if it fully completed itself. I stared at her and said, so how many? She exhaled. I don't know. And for the first time that night, I felt something worse than anger or sadness. I felt replaced without even noticing I was being removed. I don't know. Those 3 words should have been impossible. But she said them so casually it almost felt rehearsed. Like she genuinely hadn't bothered to keep count. I remember just standing there, trying to process what kind of life that even is. Not one affair. Not a mistake. Not a breakdown moment. A pattern. A system. She looked at me like I was overreacting again, which was somehow still her default setting. You're acting like I've been living some double life, she said. I almost interrupted her, but she kept going. It wasn't like that. Things just happened. Things just happened. Like she tripped and fell into multiple men. I said, no. Things don't just happen. You chose them. That made her expression harden again. You always make everything black and white, she said. That's your problem. And I remember thinking, there it is again. Turning responsibility into my personality flaw. I asked her, quieter this time, did you ever plan to stop? She paused. Long enough that it answered the question before she even spoke. I was figuring things out, she said. Figuring things out. While I was at home thinking we were building a future. I felt something inside me go very still. Not calm. Just detached. Like my brain was stepping back from my body to avoid overheating. Then I said, so what now? You just walk away like nothing happened? She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I'm not walking away like nothing happened. I'm walking away because something didn't work. And that sentence, cold, clinical, final, was the first time I understood. She wasn't trying to be forgiven. She was trying to be justified. That word, justified, kept looping in my head after she said it. Because it explained everything. The lies. The tone. The way she wasn't panicking, wasn't begging, wasn't even trying to repair anything. She wasn't there to fix damage. She was there to make it reasonable. I looked at her and said, so you're not sorry. She answered too fast. I didn't say that. But she also didn't say she was sorry. And that silence was louder than anything else. I remember asking, if I had never shown up tonight, how long would you have kept this going? She frowned slightly, like she didn't like the direction of the question. That's not fair, she said. Of course it wasn't. It never is, when accountability enters the room. I pressed anyway. Answer it. She looked away for the first time that night. I don't know, she said again. Same answer. Different question. Same avoidance. That's when I noticed something else. She wasn't emotional. Not really. There was no panic, no breakdown, no regret spilling out uncontrollably. Just irritation. Control. Distance. Like I was the emotional one disturbing her exit plan. I asked, did you ever love me? That one finally made her pause longer than usual. Not because she was thinking. Because she knew the answer mattered. Eventually she said, I did. At some point. Past tense. Like it was a phase she grew out of. I nodded slowly, feeling something settle in my chest that I can only describe as exhaustion mixed with clarity. Then I said something I didn't fully plan. "Pack your things." She blinked. For the first time, she actually looked surprised. And I realized right then, she expected negotiation. Not an ending. She stared at me like I had just said something irrational. "Excuse me?" she asked. Not confused. Offended. Like I was stepping outside the boundaries she still believed I was supposed to operate within. I repeated it. "Pack your things. I'm done." That word, done, finally cracked her composure slightly. Not enough for tears. Not enough for remorse. But enough for anger to slip through. "You can't just tell me that," she said sharply. "This is my home too." That made me laugh again, but it wasn't real laughter anymore. "Yeah," I said, "it was our home. Until you decided to turn it into something else." She took a step closer, voice lowering. "You're being impulsive," she said. "You don't even understand what you're doing right now." That line, again, like I wasn't a person making a decision, but a problem needing correction. I looked at her and said, "I understand everything." And I meant it. For the first time that night, I actually did. The lies weren't confusing anymore. The cheating wasn't a mystery anymore. Even her behavior, cold, dismissive, rehearsed, made sense now. It wasn't chaos. It was pattern. She crossed her arms, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. "So what, you're just going to throw away 9 years?" she asked. That question used to have power. But now it just sounded like delay. I said, "You already did that. I'm just acknowledging it." That landed differently. She didn't respond immediately. And in that silence, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was annoyed that I wasn't making it harder. That realization changed something in me. Because up until that moment, a part of me still expected something: panic, regret, even anger that turned into pleading. Anything that felt human in the way I used to understand her. But there was none of that. Just irritation that the situation wasn't going according to her preferred script. She exhaled sharply and said, "Fine. If that's what you want to do, don't act like I'm the only one responsible here." I just stared at her. Even now. Still trying to distribute blame evenly. I said, "I'm not debating responsibility with you anymore." That seemed to frustrate her more than anything. Because arguing required engagement. And I wasn't giving her that anymore. She grabbed her phone, unlocking it quickly, like she needed something to do with her hands. "You're going to regret doing this so fast," she said without looking up. That line again. Still trying to predict my future emotions like she knew me better than I knew myself. I asked, "Is that what you tell yourself?" That made her snap her head up. "What?" "You said I'd regret this," I continued. "You said I'd accept things if you eased into it. You said I always needed things explained to me. Is that how you justify it in your head?" For a second, she didn't answer. And I saw it clearly then, the structure behind everything. Not confusion. Not chaos. A narrative she built where she was never fully the villain. She finally said, "You're making me out to be something I'm not." And I said, very calmly, "No. I'm finally seeing what you are." That was the moment her expression shifted completely. Not sadness. Not guilt. Something colder. Like I had stopped being someone she needed to manage and started being someone she needed to detach from entirely. She went quiet for a long moment after that. Not reflective quiet. Not emotional quiet. Strategic quiet. Like she was deciding what version of herself to present next. Then she said, "If you're going to be like this, I'm not having this conversation anymore." I nodded. Good, I said. Then don't. That clearly wasn't the response she wanted. Because she was used to leaving conversations in control of the ending. She took a step back, then another. For a second I thought she might actually leave right there and then, but instead she stopped and said, "I'll come back for my things." I replied, "Text me. I'll be gone." That part finally landed. Not emotionally. Practically. Because for the first time, she was no longer able to assume access to my space, my routine, my life. She hesitated, like she wanted to add something else, another justification, another angle, but nothing came. So she just nodded once. Quick. Controlled. Then she walked past me. No apology. No last look that meant anything. Just exit. And when she got into the car, I stood there on the street again, watching the same door she walked out of earlier. But this time, nothing inside me was trying to chase her back. It was just, still. Too still. Like my mind had finally stopped running in circles and didn't know what to do with the silence yet. I stayed there for a while. Long enough for the street noise to feel normal again. And that's when it hit me properly for the first time. This wasn't the moment everything broke. It was the moment I stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. I didn't go home right away. I just drove for a while with no destination, like my brain needed time to catch up with what my life had just become. At some point I pulled over near a quiet street and just sat there with the engine off. No texts from her. No calls. Nothing. And weirdly, that silence felt more honest than anything she'd said in months. The next morning was the strangest part. Waking up alone in a bed that suddenly felt too big, too neutral, like it had been reset to factory settings. No, good morning. No passive-aggressive comment about something I did wrong. Just quiet. And in that quiet, everything she had said started replaying again, but differently now. Not as confusion. As pattern recognition. The lies. The tone shifts. The way she always positioned herself as misunderstood instead of responsible. The way she rewrote arguments so I ended up apologizing for reacting to things she did. It didn't feel like I had lost something anymore. It felt like I had finally stopped participating in something that was never equal. A few days later, she texted about coming to get her things. Short. Practical. No emotion. Like we were coordinating furniture pickup, not the end of a marriage. When she came, she didn't look at me much. No apology. No attempt to fix the narrative anymore. Almost like once I stopped resisting, there was no need for performance. After she left, I sat on the couch for a long time just thinking about how easy it is to confuse intensity with love, and control with stability. What I learned from all of this is simple, even if it took me years too long to see it. If someone keeps lying to you, it's not a mistake, it's a system. If they always turn accountability into your fault, it's not communication, it's control. And if you constantly feel like you're too much for asking basic honesty, you're probably not the problem. To anyone reading something like this and seeing pieces of your own situation in it, don't wait for the perfect proof, or the perfect timing, or the perfect confession. By the time it's undeniable, you've already been living with it for a while. Leaving wasn't clean. It wasn't empowering in a movie sense. It was just necessary. And in a strange way, that's what finally felt like peace.